Welcome to the most important off-season edition of Miami Herald's Dolphins in Depth. I'm your host, Omar Kelly. This is my colleague, Barry Jackson, and today happens to be the day that we've waited for, 5 months, Barry?
It seems like forever. Thank God our national nightmare is over. Tua has been paid. Everyone can rest easy. We can go ahead with the season.
You know what's interesting? I think this is probably, and I keep track of this and I pay attention. I think that this is possibly the first contract in NFL history that the national media will scrutinize every detail of, because generally they really don't care. They just report out what the agents tell them the numbers are and then move on with their merry way. But everybody needs to know the finite detailed amounts of this contract for Tua Tagovailoa. What we know right now is that according to the agency Athletes First, it is a 4-year extension worth how much, Barry?
$212.4 million in new money over those 4 years. So he's now signed through 2028. This season, with a contract already in place, plus an additional 4 seasons. And the other big numbers, more than anybody, you've written this, is guarantee. And in that regard, he's at $167 million, which doesn't place him in the top 5 of guaranteed money, but it's a very good number.
Hold on, Barry.
History.
This is an important thing here, because when agents put out guaranteed information, what do they usually tell you? This is fully guaranteed, and then there's guaranteed. We don't know how much of that is injury guaranteed. We don't know how much of that is guaranteed based on whether he's on the roster the 5th day of the 2026 league year. We don't know the language of this contract, and this is why, and I say this all the time, and I'm going to continue to say this. Anybody who's known me and has followed my work for multitude of years knows me and Mike Florio. We are on a league-wide war about how these agencies and mainstream media report these contracts in terms of new money versus total money, in terms of guaranteed versus fully guaranteed. Until I see the details, or the details of all levels of this contract are fully reported, and Mike Florio is the first who usually does that, I don't know how to assess and evaluate this contract. What I do know is, on the face of it, it looks like a good deal for Tua Tagovailoa. Notice I said it looks like a good deal for Tua Tagovailoa. Let's just go through some of these numbers that are important that we do not know yet. We do not know what the signing bonus is or what the roster bonuses are. And here's why this is important, because the signing and the roster bonus basically dictates and determines how cap friendly this deal is. How much money will Tua get in year 1? That should be the number one question that is asked. What is his signing bonus looking like? Obviously, his base salary is probably going to be around the $5 million realm, because it's hard to maneuver a deal like that when it's that large without making it a decent sized salary. Tyreek Hill got $50 million in guaranteed money. I'm curious to see how much Steve Ross, who has never spared a penny when it comes to this organization, gives to a signing bonus. If it is $50 million, signing bonus can only be divided up by 5 years, just so you know. So this is technically a 5-year deal. So let's say if Steve Ross gives him a $50 million signing bonus, then that signing bonus is divided up $10 million per year. Then you got his base salary. Let's assume there's a roster bonus in it. And that's going to be what his year 1 cap hit is. And that year 1 cap hit is going to lower his number this year, which is $23.2 million. So that's the first number. Then we get to what is fully guaranteed. And I love the fact that they excluded that language when the deal is reported, because fully guaranteed means he's going to get every single dollar of that. And realistically, that's the only money I truly count. Now, and then the full total of the deal. Okay, 212 is what's being reported now over 4 years. But when you factor in the $23.2 million that he was guaranteed, it's going to be a 5-year deal. What is the final number of that 5-year deal? And until I know that, I can't tell you what his average is per year. But for right now, it looks like on paper, Barry, in terms of new money, which is how they like to report these deals, he's going to be making $53 million a year. And where does that stack him up amongst NFL quarterbacks?
That puts him 3rd. And again, Omar draws a distinction, which I totally get. He only calculates new money in the deal as opposed to the entirety of the contract. I know Omar prefers to do the entirety of the contract, but most people do just new money. So in terms of merely the 4-year extension, Tua is going to average $53.1 million per year over those 4 years, 2025 through 2028, according to his agency. That's third among NFL quarterbacks behind Joe Burrow at 55. Trevor Lawrence is at 55. Then you have Tua third at 53.1. Goff just a shade behind at 53. Herbert's at 52.5. Lamar Jackson's at 52. Jalen Hurts is at 51. So Tua can say that his extension averages the third most per year among NFL quarterbacks. So that probably is the major takeaway, even though it doesn't tell the full story by any means. That will be the major takeaway from most people, because I think that to me, Omar, is what mostly interests the audience that doesn't want to get too much in the weeds in numbers. They want to know who's getting the most per year. And if you use this measurement, you would say Tua is third most behind only Burrow and Lawrence, but there are other measurements that would put Tua lower.
And as you know, I hate these measurements and I hate these numbers because they are not realistic. And there's literally only one quarterback in the NFL whose entire contract averages more than $50 million, and
Lamar Jackson.
That's Lamar Jackson.
Noted.
Now Jared Goff does get 49.1. Okay, absolutely logical. Here's the question that I have for what the real money is. When you're talking about, let's say, Trevor Lawrence's deal, 7 years for $312 million. He's at 44.6 a season. Joe Burrow, 7 years for $315 million, 315.8. Let me not shortchange him. That's $45.1 million a year. You know, where does Tua stack up with those new deals? Is he over the 45 threshold, which I feel is the upper echelon of NFL quarterbacks? And it seems, based on my amateur math, we don't know that number yet. And we won't know that number until we see the totality of the deal. But no matter whether he's at 40, I have right now, if you're talking about $212 million in new money, and then you add in the $23.2 million, that puts him at $47 million a season. And this is just a guess. But if I have $23 million fully guaranteed, it's not disappearing from my contract. You're just going to maneuver it somehow, some way with a signing bonus. But here's the statement that I'm making. If Tua is making $47 million a season, at least over the first 3 years of the deal, he's won. He is ultimately this was a win for his agency, Athletes First. I wouldn't say that the Dolphins were the victims of a heist. They agreed to pay the money. Ultimately, this is what they deemed him to be worth. But Athletes First did a good job with this contract, because you could have certainly seen a scenario where the Dolphins dug in because of concerns about injuries and offered a guarantee substantially less than the 167 that the agency is reporting. Obviously, we'll see what the number really is. But if it is $53.1 million per season, factoring in 4 years, 25 through 28, or if it's $47 million per season, factoring in the 23.1 this year, that puts Tua in the top 3 or 10 of quarterbacks. And either way, he comes out of this deal looking very good. His agency comes out looking very good. One thing I want to add, one detail that was told to me early in the process was that percentage of the salary cap was very important to Athletes First in this deal. They asked for a certain percentage of the cap to reflect boosts in the cap over the last couple of years. So Tua's deal of $53.1 million on average in the 4 years of the extension represents 20.8% of the current salary cap. Okay. According to Spotrac, that's the 11th highest percentage for any NFL player. So the question then becomes, does that leave the Dolphins with enough room to surround him with the type of talent that he needs and that, frankly, most quarterbacks need to be successful? That remains to be seen. Obviously, the Dolphins can keep kicking tires down the road by reallocating money, as they've done with several players. And people always say there's a price to pay eventually with all of this, citing what the New Orleans Saints have gone through. Absolutely. I'm one of those people, hand raised. Yeah. You cannot keep paying down money on one credit card with another credit card. And soon enough, the bill is going to be due. However, I do see, and I have said this all off season, this Tua deal more than likely will create about $8 million in cap spaces this year. You sign Tyreek to an extension. That's going to create cap space this year or next. No matter how you do it, you could wait until next year to do Tyreek's deal. You wait until next offseason. And I really do feel like they might do it. But getting both of those deals done, it should create a healthy enough cap situation for you to have at least a 2-year window. I would hope it would be 3, but then you could just restructure Tua and Tyreek's deal as they've done every offseason, move money around. You can give Zach Sealer an extension because right now his deal looks ridiculously low. And create different cap space. There's ways to maneuver it. Unfortunately, at some point, when you do that enough, you're going to have to do what the New Orleans Saints did, which is basically purge your roster for a season, stand down on free agency for a season, and then basically reset your books. Now, that is something that the Dolphins cannot afford to do in this window because you have a finite amount of years with Tyreek Hill. You have a finite amount of years with Jalen Ramsey. You don't even know if Javon Holland's going to be on your roster next year because he's on his final year of his rookie deal. And now that Tua's deal is done, you have to turn your attention to Javon Holland. So it'll be interesting to see how this gets played out. What's next?
Right. And keep in mind the Dolphins have $9 million cap space at the moment. If Tua's deal lowered his $23.2 million cap at this year, which we expect that it did, then you could be looking at maybe 15 or 16 million in space now. As Omar said, a Tyreek extension would increase that space even more, but you're not obligated to use that space this year. You can carry it over to next year, which is what I would expect they would do with the vast majority of this cap space because they'll need it next offseason to resolve Javon Holland's situation. He'll be a free agent. Jalen Phillips, you can either keep him on the 5th-year option, which they've already picked up by the May 1st deadline, or you could give him a new deal, which maybe lowers that number. So to me, the cap space that they have, $9 million at the moment, we think it'll be in the mid-teens after Tua's deal gets reflected on the books next week. I think most of that money is going to be carried over barring injuries. If you have injuries at a position where there is a pricey free agent still available, maybe they use some of that money this year. You also need a couple of $1 million for your practice squad. So I think from a cap standpoint, they're in decent shape. I want to tell you what struck me today, Omar. We know how polarizing Tua is nationally. I've been surprised by the reaction just going off social media. And I know social media and Twitter is not a reflection of how the entire fan base feels. But to me, it's felt pretty mixed. There are a lot of people who are happy for Tua because he's such a nice young man and they've seen good play from him for 2 years. Some who are saying, we're thrilled he got his money, he deserves it. Others saying, well, we are now going to be banished to mediocrity for 4 years. He's limited. Why did they do this? I'm surprised that we haven't seen a stronger tilting toward positives just from the social media reaction I've seen on Twitter. And again, maybe that's not reflective of how the entire fan base feels. Maybe most of the fan base is thrilled by this. I think it's a good deal for Tua. As I said, I would have waited, but the last thing I'm going to do today is rain on Tua's parade. He's a terrific young man. He's had 2 very good seasons. He deserves the money. I don't think it was a mistake by the Dolphins. I would have waited because I've explained to you I'm more conservative philosophically with extensions. I only give them to players who don't have questions surrounding them, like health in Tua's case primarily. But I understand wanting to put it behind you and wanting to commit to the guy because he's done enough in 2 years to make a commitment long-term justified, even though I would have held off. I know how you feel as far as giving him the money. Do you think the money is excessive?
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I like Tua. I believe in Tua. I'm still waiting for him to get the glow and be able to finish opponents. I looked at him as a Kirk Cousins-esque quarterback. I would have paid him somewhere in the neighborhood of $45 million. I know you have concerns about injury.
Right. And head injuries as much as anything.
Yeah. Here's my thing, and this is the reason why I don't think you've heard the term fully guaranteed, because I think a lot of those guarantees are injury guarantees. And if it is injury that you're worried about, Tua's worried about, okay, what's the harm of throwing an injury guarantee in there? And you can come out and say, reporting that it's 160. What is it? 160. What?
7 is the number that the agency is.
167. Okay. Here's the thing about guaranteed money, and just to educate people. one, the guaranteed money is all I count. Because what percent would you put on it of deals that you see get finished in the NFL?
Oh, I would say as far as big money deals, you seldom see deals finished, even with the best players, without a contract adjustment to bring their cap number down or to force them to have a lower salary, right? It's commonplace in this league. It amazes me that the union's never been able to do anything about that since this sport produces the most TV revenue of any in the country. But it's just reality, right?
Yeah, I would tell you, and I'm sure, in terms of guys who signed 4-year deals or longer, the only person I can remember who actually finished his deal was Cameron Wake and Randy Starks. So let's put that besides there and imagine how long ago that was. But to me, it's about take the guaranteed 167, divide it by 3 years. That's what he's, let's just say, depending on if that's the guaranteed, that's what he's really going to get. So I'm not worried about what the back end of the deal, the fluff money, what it looks like, because as we know, you can put all kinds of money in the back end, like Trevor Lawrence's deal, and they'll probably never see that unless the contract is restructured, which is the situation that Tyreek Hill is in. Let me ask you this question, because to give people a snippet, today was the final practice of the week because they're taking a break on Saturday. They'll return on Sunday where fans are invited. It's going to be a ruckus of an environment. You're going to get the rookies entertaining the fans by doing something crazy, and I expect a celebration for Tua and his contract. We love you, Tua, kind of situation. How much do you think Tua practiced today, a day after not practicing at all, and practice day without any limitations, doing 11-on-11, literally his first throw of 11-on-11 practice was a play, a 70-yard deep bomb to Tyreek Hill. That even surprised the defense, who were like, wait a minute. We didn't expect Tua to be throwing the ball. So Tyreek, no double coverage, no cornerback just releases him. Yeah, when's that going to ever happen in the NFL? But this was today, his full participation. It was the day that the defense shined. Now, can tell you for a fact, and this is source information, the deal was not done before he practiced. How much do you think today's practice influenced this, Barry?
I think absolutely not. But I love the fake contract holdout play, right? To find Tyreek open with Jalen Ramsey, apparently a no Dolphin defender, thinking the Tua was actually going to throw the ball. Unfortunately, you can't use that in a game, right? I mean, that'd be the ideal thing. It's like the fake spike from Marino years ago. It's I don't think I'm going to throw an 11-on-11's fake. That's out the window now. But it was at least heartening, right, for you to be able to watch Tua do what has made him valuable to the Dolphins, which is completion on the deep ball. Last year, second best in the league in deep ball completion percentage, balls that traveled at least 20 air yards. That's become a real strength for him. It was never a weakness like some portrayed it to be, but it's now really a strength. And that's one of the things you get now having him under contract.
Who's number one? Who's number one?
Brock Purdy. Brock Purdy was at 52% last year.
Okay. All right.
So tell me what else. So we don't make entirely too eccentric today. Tell me what else stuck out to you. Ogba continues acting like he's been on an NFL team for 4 months. It's been pretty impressive, right? To see how professional
Ogba is good. Ogba's been good. I will tell you who also impressed. Quentin Bell. While he's a practice squad player, former wide receiver at Prairie View A&M, I got to tell you, there's athleticism there. I watched them work on individual drills, and I'm just watching for the athleticism of the players. Clearly, Chop Robinson is head and shoulders, can move like nobody else can move, maybe only compared to maybe Bradley Chubb or Jalen Phillips if I actually saw them do those drills. But you know who was right behind him? Quentin Bell, and moved quite well, quite long, lanky. He's got 56, so his body reminds me a lot of Charlie Anderson. You remember Charlie Anderson? Big money contract for Jeff Island, barely ever did anything, but he looked the part. Quentin Bell looks the part, and right now he's running. I'm not supposed to tell you this, but ahead of the rookies. And I also
most likely unheralded guy to make it. I think he's going to be this year's Julian Hill potentially, or Kader Kohu, or Nick Needham, or Tanner Connor, someone who surprises to get on the 53. Right now, he's a leader in the clubhouse, I think. It doesn't assure that he'll be on the team if there's an edge player cut by another team in August who makes it, but right now, he would be on your team. Obviously, we need to see him produce in games, right? And he potentially could open the season as a starting edge player. If Jalen Phillips isn't ready, it could be Agba and Bell, or it could be Agba and Chop Robinson. But Chop Robinson has to earn snaps. What beyond Chop Robinson's movement skills have struck you one way or the other in 3 days in pajamas?
I'm not as high on Chop Robinson as a lot of my peers. And I generally do not have this over-infatuated obsession with rookies and, tell you, I don't acknowledge rookies until they flash either good or bad. And I can tell you, Chop Robinson has not flashed in 11-on-11s. He's not done anything that has really drawn my attention. I've seen Patrick Paul flash in a negative way in terms of false starts and penalties and holding. There are no refs out there, but I got eyes. I saw you hold. Now, in fairness to an offensive lineman, this is a drill. These are practices without pads. Pads don't come on until Monday, which means that's when the action begins, baby. So the offensive linemen need those pads to hold on to it's not holding, you're not tugging it, but to position their hands. Right now, they've got nothing to position their hands on. So Patrick Paul, I would tell you, he's struggling just a little bit in terms of below my expectations. Malik Washington is probably doing a little bit better than I expected. I can tell you right now, he's probably a little ahead than Eric Uzukama, who his days are numbered, it seems.
And once again, running the wrong route today, as you noted in your practice report. Shouldn't he know the playbook by year 3? What's up with that?
Well, it's a one-on-one, maybe two. Maybe these are signals, hand signals. You don't know with these one-on-ones. It's not like one-on-ones is not like a quarterback's out there saying, "Hey, let's go blue 42." He's not telling you the play. He's probably throwing you a hand signal. Uzukama misread the hand signal, completely ran the wrong route. Tua gives him a, "Hey, what are you doing?" So I am a Uzukama fan when from his rookie season, he was killing it in camp with Skylar Thompson. They had a chemistry, they had a bond. I get it. Uzukama probably wants to work with higher elevated quarterbacks from this coaching staff. If Skylar's on the field, Uzukama's on the field. And I'm running plays. I'm running Tyreek's plays with Uzukama because I need to know what the hell I got. We're here with a 2021 4th round pick who seemingly days are numbered. Show me what you got. I hate the fact that that whole draft class of 2021, just throw it out. It's just,
and also, one thing that comes to mind, Omar, about the Tua deal, it's always important to hit on your draft picks. But considering he's now going to take 20.8% of your salary cap, you have to have a rate of 70% or more on these draft picks. And you need the Channing Tindalls of the world to deliver so that you don't need to pay Jordan Brooks, right? So this becomes even more important to hit on your draft picks because you're going to be spread so thin at the top of your cap with Tua and Tyreek Hill and Bradley Chubb, and Jalen Phillips is going to get paid if he has a big year. Javon Holland's going to get paid if he has a big year. Jalen Waddle already is top 12 in average salary receivers. So all of that makes it even more important. You've got to hit on your second and third rounders. Now, Greer in recent years has done pretty good job second and third round compared to earlier, but there have been exceptions, obviously, with Tyndall, with Liam Eichenberg.
Solomon Kinley.
Starter, but certainly not someone that you would draft 42nd overall and trade up for like you did last year.
The Hunter tight end, Hunter Long. Man, listen, Greer has to do far better from a draft standpoint. That's one of my main criticisms of him. Let me tell you another area of concern that I have. And I want to address this because I'm trying to put together an understanding of how veteran players or aged players or the 30-year-olds or the guys with high mileage, I don't really know what to call it. And props to Mike McDaniel because he said basically his sports science people have come up with a program for certain players which is going to ensure or hopefully ensure that they're healthier or better positioned to finish the season strong as a team. Okay, so Raheem Mostert did not practice today. We already know Teron Armstead's in bubble wrap. Hopefully, he can't force his way out of bubble wrap for at least 2 weeks. Even though he got hurt during the first joint practice last season, maybe I put it in bubble wraps for 3 weeks. But then guys like Anthony Walker today said he was the orange jersey player for his outstanding performance yesterday. And I asked him, he disappeared for 50 minutes from practice. And I'm watching these individual drills. They've got 4 linebackers. They need 6. And I'm thinking to myself, like, what the heck is going on here? And he says, okay. He comes out and he talks today and he says it's part of a maintenance program. I guess they were holding him out of individual drills. But him and Tyreek and guys of that nature are literally showing up at the good points of practice. Like, oh, I'm going inside. And then I'm coming out when it's 7-on-7s or 11-on-11s. And I'm thinking to myself, like, I've never seen this. 18 years, I've never seen this.
Yeah.
Are you okay with it? Are you okay with
it
if it leads to better performances in December, January?
Exactly. And it's something McDaniel said they've studied. So this is not just willy-nilly inserting guys in and out of practice anytime a coach has the mood to take them out. Their medical team, their strength and conditioning team has studied this, and there must be a formula to this madness, right? I don't think – I know you're interested in the topic. I find it interesting too. I don't know that's going to have a tangible impact on results. I guess one thing you can always point to is the December phase. How much is injuries? How much is schedule? How much is it not them finding the exact right formula to handle training camp? How much is just the fact that they're playing in a tropical oasis, right, in one of the hottest places in the U.S. during the summer, and it's just naturally going to take wear and tear on their body and make them more tired in December. All these questions are unclear, and I don't know that we're ever going to get an answer. And I don't know that we're ever going to be fully satisfied until they ace of December. And hopefully this will be the year.
Yeah, definitely. But, Raheem did not work. So that means we got a lot of opportunity to see the young Jalen Wright. He was stuffed a lot in the backfield. No offense. I don't expect – I go back to the days of Devon Achane being an impersonator for Savon Ahmed. So – I'm not putting that much stock into training camp. Last year, we couldn't tell whether it was Savon or Devon whenever either of them had opportunities because they were very close numbers and they're about this big together. They're not that big, but, like this big together. So it was hard to tell. But Devon never shined in training camp, and he never signed in the exhibition season, got carries in the NFL, 200-yard game. So I'm not putting that much stock in Jalen Wright. To me, the biggest concern and takeaway from today was the snapping issues. Aaron Brewer had some snapping issues in his exchange with Tua Tagovailoa. Now, these weren't Connor Williams-esque snapping issues. But, the target, the handoff, those are things that need to be worked on. And Tua clearly recognizes it, which is why he's working on it. And Brewer said that this is just something that they need to work on before and after practice, and I'm sure they'll get it under wraps.
Any concerns with guards so far? I know we're limited in what we can say about who is where, but we do know, and this can be reported, Isaiah Wynn, obviously not all the way back from the quadriceps. He's on PUP. So you're going to get an audition among, obviously, Rob Jones, Liam Eichenberg, Jack Driscoll. The Ohio State rookie Jones is going to get a lot of reps over these next couple weeks. He's intriguing to me, a 24-game starter at Ohio State the last 2 years. If they keep 10 offensive linemen, he's got as good a chance as anyone, certainly as good as Chasen Hines or Lester Cotton. So I think he's another player worth monitoring. But do they have enough?
Keon Smith is going to be difficult to dislodge for that 10th guy. He just moves differently for a tackle, in my opinion. It'll be interesting to see what happens when pads come on. What I did find interesting is, and I can report this because Liam Eichenberg said it. Basically, Liam Eichenberg has been front runner for one of the starting guard spots. And then today they were like, Liam, we need you at center. And no competition for guard. So they got an opportunity to evaluate other guys. And Liam basically was like, well, I guess I got to play center again, which is important because you need a backup center. But Liam wants a fair and legitimate shot to win that one of those starting guard spots. Now, if he's the backup center, do you think he realistically has one?
I do. I think they're going to play the best player at right guard. My sense is that they would not be displeased if Driscoll wins the job. He was their offseason acquisition of the position, even though it wasn't for very much money. But I think it'll be a fair competition. Butch Barry's going to go with the guy, whether it's Eichenberg or whether it's Driscoll at right guard, that he thinks gives them the best chance to win. And to remind people, Eichenberg was more than serviceable at right guard last season. His big problems came against really powerful nose tackles and good defenses at center, especially the October 1st Buffalo game. At right guard, he was fine. Is he going to be great? No, but he's going to be competent. So I don't have a lot of concern there. My concern would be if Wynn's not able to play, because remember, he's missed substantial parts of 4 of the last 5 seasons, 4 of those with New England, last year with Miami, and they've been all different body parts. So I hate to say a guy is injury prone, but when you miss substantial time with 4 different body parts, you're going to get that reputation, whether fairly or unfairly. So to me, the big concern is Wynn and being able to count on him, because then I think you can get away with Eichenberg, Driscoll, Rob Jones on the other side. I was going to ask you about corners, and we'll know more about this, obviously, when there are more 11-on-11s. But I saw Kendall Fuller, from all reports, made a couple of plays today. Nick Needham made a play on the ball. Ethan Bonner's been getting a lot of work. It's clear that this coordinator is going to take a long look at him. They remain very much intrigued by him, even though it was Fangio who played him, and different defensive back coaches. It was Fangio who played him ahead of Cam Smith last year, but there's still some infatuation with Ethan Bonner, no?
Oh, yeah, and I think the infatuation is valid from this standpoint. Anthony Schwartz, who is in the conversation for one of the fastest players on the team, he was asked to name his fastest players. And this is the second time with Tyreek being the first time that Ethan Bonner's name has been mentioned as the fastest often. And this is going based on the team's mile per hour tracker. Every player wears a GPS that tells coaches how hard they're working, how many steps they've taken, how many miles per hour, what's your top mile per hour. And Ethan Bonner continues to post the fastest times. This goes back to his rookie season. So clearly they see and like the ability. He's running second team. I'm not shy about saying that. He's running second team. I think he's just got just as much a chance to play as Cam Smith. It really comes down to who performs and who executes. And
what a fascinating battle that will be in camp, right?
A second round pick once versus a undrafted player in the same draft class.
He always jokes about being a Caucasian corner. You know, he talks to us about that because it's been made an issue to him over the years. So I know we all have written stories about that, obviously with his blessing. But I mean, if Bonner should beat out Cam Smith, what a fascinating thing that would be.
He did last year.
Yes,
he did last year.
Exactly. Is Nickel Kohu's job clearly to lose in your mind? Do you think Needham's going to have a legitimate chance to regain that job that he had before Kader Kohu's arrival?
No, I think Nickel. I don't think Needham will compete with Nickel. I also don't think it's Kader's job. So,
some Ramsey, obviously, they're going to move him there. Right, Weaver's been very transparent. We're going to use him as a Swiss Army knife, Jalen Ramsey.
Yeah, if your best receiver is inside at the nickel, do believe that Jalen Ramsey's going to be at the nickel. I think you're also probably potentially going to see some Javon Holland at the nickel. This is, and here's the thing: I can't concretely tell you what it's going to look like because right now they're testing things, they're working on things. Guys are disappearing because they're on maintenance programs. You know, Kader didn't even participate in minicamp, so you're seeing a lot of things get worked on. They're throwing a lot of stuff against the wall, and I have absolutely no idea what's going to stick. I think once you get to some of those joint practices, you'll have a better idea, but we will be here, Dolphins in Depth, covering it all for you. To recap this episode, Tua finally gets his money. The market is the market. And we had a offense-dominated day. I usually keep score who wins the day. So right now, 3 days of training camp. We've got 2 days victories for Dolphins defense, 1 day victory for the Dolphins offense. But I do want to say this. I have not seen a single blitz yet from Anthony Weaver's defense.
They're
So
coming in games. Calais Campbell told us. Wait till you see what he has with his blitz back. That was the first thing I want to say quickly. Calais talked about with what intrigues him about Anthony Weaver. Just wait to see the blitz packages. So we're waiting. We might have to wait till September 8th against Jacksonville, but they're coming.
Yeah, definitely. And we are coming. We will be here every day. The Dolphins have practice. No practice tomorrow, so no podcast tomorrow, but we will be back on Sunday giving you a recap of what happened in Dolphins land. For Dolphins in depth, we will see you on Sunday.